Juicy storytelling makes you more memorable to the admissions committee. It shows that you know how to capture an audience's attention, which is something you're going to have to do a lot as a public and or private sector leader. Juicy storytelling makes you stand out among the crowd of people that are submitting flat, boring essays. And bonus, it's much more fun to write admissions essays that contain juicy stories than it is to write ones that don't. All right, so let's talk about how to do it. Juicy stories start in media res, which just means right in the middle of the action. Juicy stories have a beginning, middle, and an end. Juicy stories have characters, and juicy stories have conflict. Juicy stories share what you and other characters thought, felt, said, and did. So when we say thought, the ways to know that you're hitting that part of a juicy story is you're sharing what is the inner dialogue running through your mind. Why do you make one choice versus another? So literally, what are you thinking throughout the story you're telling? Felt. What emotions are you and other characters in the story experiencing throughout the story? The feelings part is the part where our clients have the most trouble. They're used to talking about what they've done, but they are not often used to talking about their feelings. So by feelings, I really mean feelings, not thoughts, not action. Feelings are pride, anger, devastation, sadness, frustration, confusion, disappointment. Those are feelings. Said, we're really talking about literally talking. So what are you and other characters in the story saying throughout the story? And I want you to actually use the words and phrases that they use. For example, if I'm telling a story about applying to Harvard Business School as a senior in college, I will never forget that one of my best friends said, "You don't actually think you'll get in, do you?" And I still remember that really striking piece of dialogue. And I share that in the story. It's like, wow, it just hits you like a punch in the stomach, right? And so we want to include actual words and phrases that people use when we're telling a story. And of course, we know the end of the story, which is, yes, I did get in. Yes, we're still friends. I'm not mad at him for saying that, but he did say it, right? And so it's very memorable. It's part of a juicy story. What I just told doesn't really count as a juicy story because it had a middle and an end, but I didn't have a beginning. And we didn't have many characters. I didn't include my feelings. But I did do a good job of telling you what someone said. And then did is the action. So what is actually happening in the story? So you want to make sure that your juicy stories share what you and other characters thought, felt, said, and did. You are the main character of your admissions essays, the stories you tell in them. But then there are other characters that are in the story. Coworkers, parents, friends, spouse, children, stakeholders, citizenry. There's other characters always. It's never just you sitting in a room alone. If it is, I guess the other characters could be inner demons or something like that. But in general, we want the other characters to be real people. Here's what dry storytelling is. Dry storytelling takes too long to get to the exciting part of the story, is overly focused on a action versus the combination of monologue plus emotions plus dialogue plus action. Dry storytelling forgets to provide context for the story or just doesn't. Dry storytelling has two-dimensional characters who are easily forgettable. Dry storytelling takes too long to get to the end of the story or doesn't share the end at all. And dry storytelling doesn't share the resolution and or the result of all the conflicts introduced in the story. So if there is an issue or a problem introduced in the story, you need to wrap it up in the essay to wrap the story up. All right, so here's one piece of homework. I want you to choose an essay prompt that asks you to tell a story. The way you know the essay prompt is asking you to tell a story is that they will say, tell us about a time when. It's very clear when they're asking for a story. What is your proudest accomplishment and why? Tell us about the biggest commitment you've ever made. Those are all tell us a story. I want you to choose your top 2 to 3 ideas for what story you'd like to tell to address that essay prompt. I want you to create a mini outline, which includes a beginning, middle, and an end of the story. Just state the main conflict and state the main characters. So it doesn't need to be this long, detailed outline. Make sure you include all the elements of a juicy story in your draft that we just went over.